You okay, man?
What?
What's so funny? You've got Fun Factor, two old gamers reviewing old video game magazine reviews. I'm Ty Shelter, he's Aidan Moher, and we're two professional writers who grew up loving the video games and video game magazines of the 1980s, 1990s, and 2000s. Every episode, we take a critical look back on the games media that, for better and for worse, inspired us to do what we do. First, go to funfactorpod.com. Follow the show on your podcatcher of choice. Leave us a rating review on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your media. We'll read the best, kindest, funniest, and most insightful ones on the air in our letters section. Please consider becoming a member of Fun Factor Ultra, our premium tiers that unlock ad-free episodes, bonus episodes, and the members-only channels of our Discord. Just go to funfactorpod.com, and I promise you, you cannot miss the sign-up widget on our homepage. Then, help us spread the word. Shout us out on Bluesky at funfactorpod.com and everywhere else at funfactorpod.
Oh boy, Ty, I've been waiting for this moment. On today's episode, we're going to discuss another one of the most beloved games of all time.
Another one?
Another one. Can you believe it? We've done Halo. I've got another Doom episode cooking for the future, you know.
Can't have too many of those.
I can never have too many Doom episodes. And of course, we covered a bunch of personal favorites last season, like Chrono Trigger and Carnage Heart.
Heart.
With issue 105 of Game Informer, which is still in January 2002. We have not left the very first month of this new season's time frame. We're finally covering a game I love to talk about and very publicly dislike against public sentiment. It's Final Fantasy X. We'll get to my thoughts on Final Fantasy X too.
Okay.
We'll get to my thoughts on Final
10.
Fantasy X soon.
Yeah.
And 10 too.
10-2 is a whole different thing.
I wanted to ask, Ty, like, what are some popular games that just didn't work for you personally?
Yeah, it's funny because, like we've said, part of my whole thing, my fascination with critique and games media, especially at this time, is discovering my own taste. Discovering taste as a concept, you know, like what is objectively good and what is like what I like and what I don't like, right? Yeah. So I didn't buy games that I didn't think I would at least like, if not love, and I figured that out. But there were a lot of popular games around this time and game franchises we've talked about before, and I don't want to linger too long on the ones I've already talked about a lot, but like, you know, Virtua Fighter, for me, where the hook is like realism. Go! But the graphics couldn't be less realistic, you know, like just graphically, it was just so heinous to look at, and the designs weren't interesting to me. And like, they're like, oh yeah, theoretically there's all this like depth and realism, but like, yeah, okay, two normal looking people trying to do like real judo moves on each other is just like, that's not a video game to me, even if it was perfectly realistic, or photorealistic, which the new leaked the new leaked Virtua Fighter, you know, video, like, wow, yeah, that looks great. The designs are a little more interesting, but like for me, this is just no. Same thing. I think fighting games must be hit or miss for me, because I was thinking about this, and Tekken was another one where I was like, okay, so this looks repellent. It's 2D fighting with 3D graphics. The camera, especially Tekken 1, where like the camera angle would just like swing around and smash cut from angle to angle. You know, you're playing, all of a sudden the camera's just from another angle. I'm like, okay, that looks dramatic in a fighting movie, but like I can't play this game this way. So I detested Tekken. I know lots of people love Tekken, but like to me, I just that's
Tekken's one
terrible.
of the few fighting franchises that I like enjoyed quite a bit on the PlayStation.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but
No, it's
probably for the exact opposite reasons a lot of people like or liked it or disliked it. Like I liked that it was kind of mashy and chaotic and like you know,
sure,
but yeah,
sure.
that's
Yeah,
fine.
and I'll say I still haven't given Dragon Quest a real shot
Oh, huh?
because I just can't get away from, and as much as I like to be like I like gameplay, like back at this time, this was
Yeah,
the big thing, gameplay, like interactivity, like that's what the real thing is. The focus on graphics
yeah,
is too, but like also like I want to be inspired to play a game. I want to spend time in the world. I want to find the characters interesting and intriguing. And like Dragon Quest, maybe I got spoiled by starting with Chrono Trigger, but like because that was like really my introduction to
yeah,
JRPGs.
yeah.
But like I look at Dragon Quest, and every Dragon Quest ever makes me just go, wow, this looks like shitty Chrono Trigger. Like it just looks
Uh,
like a like here's these characters, and they're doing
yeah,
the
huh?
remakes and stuff, and they put out and people are like, oh, that's my boy, discount Goku, and like my
But it's
girl,
not
like,
just Count Goku. It was they're designed by Toriyama,
no, I know, but
right?
like
Like
like I
more
get
so
it,
than
but
Chrono Trigger is even.
right, no, well, and I think that's why.
Yeah,
I like Chrono Trigger because so
yeah,
many of the designs are like, okay, Toriyama gave us the starting point
yeah,
and then we built on it,
yeah,
versus like, okay, this is just Toriyama doing his Toriyama thing,
yeah,
and like
yeah.
all non-Dragon Ball stuff. Like I love Dragon Ball, but like a lot of the non-Dragon Ball Toriyama stuff is sometimes like it's wildly hit or miss for me, whether
Right.
it's like, oh, this is just Toriyama cranking out his thing, and all the Dragon Quest character designs like just like it just doesn't look compelling to me. So I should give it a fair shot.
Two things. One great Chrono Trigger anecdote. If you've read my book, Fight Magic Items, you probably know it. But Akira Toriyama famously did the character design and like creative like visual design for Chrono Trigger. But all he provided for the characters was them from the front. So he only drew them from the
Yeah.
front, did not draw
Yeah.
like 360s of their back or their sides. And so the pixel artists had to like basically make it up based on his designs from the front. And my understanding is like we've seen all the key art from Chrono Trigger. The art that's on the cover, like the
Concept art.
epic like
Yeah.
flying through the speeding up for the time warp. I think all that concept art is all Toriyama actually did for Chrono Trigger, and then everything else was the pixel artists and stuff following up. Um, Second of all, Ty, everything that you like most about Chrono Trigger is its Dragon Quest DNA. And so
That
like
makes
if
sense.
you like the characters and the story beats and the structure and all of that is so Dragon Quest that a lot of people call Chrono Trigger the best Final Fantasy game. To me it feels more like a Dragon Quest game than it does a Final Fantasy game if I had to split hairs. So give it a shot. We can talk
Yeah,
off air about some of the good starting points.
for
8,
sure.
11, 5, if you have access to it. All very good. Um, interesting. Interesting. Another game series for me, which I almost chose for this episode actually, is Grand Theft Auto. I
Mm.
actually played
Mm-hmm.
more of the first 2 games. Did you know there's a Grand Theft Auto 1 and 2, Ty? I missed out on the PS2 entries. Like a friend had Vice City, I think, one of my
Mm-hmm.
brother's friends, and would bring it over. So I like dabbled a little, but didn't play it too much. I just liked my RPGs, and that's what I was playing. When I finally decided to give the series a shot with GTA 4, I just couldn't really get past the Ludo narrative dissonance of the story about an immigrant seeking a new life in America to escape the violence in his home country, who then just immediately goes on this like sociopathic crime spree. And so there was this like divergence between the gameplay, which was classic Grand Theft Auto, and story beats. They were so far apart in those terms. Um, that was just sort of the end of this series for me. I just never really could get past that that dissonance. And I just can get fun sandbox experiences in a lot of other ways in a lot of other games. And so it's just, if I want zany sandbox experience, I can play Goat Simulator 3 or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's ridiculous. And I spend 45 minutes and then get bored of the sandbox gameplay and move on, without the tension, the bad friction of that narrative dissonance.
Yeah, and for me, we've talked about this a little bit before. My dad and mom split when I was 1, and my dad very quickly remarried and converted to born-again evangelicalism. So every other, like once a week and then every other weekend, like go over for dinner on once a week, and then I'd spend every other weekend with them.
Yeah.
And so I was getting the stereotypical 80s, 90s evangelical parenting experience half, 20% of the time.
Yeah.
And then I would come back home to my mom, who's a lapsed Catholic, dabbling in, woo-woo stuff. Yoga, astrology, tarot,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so like I'm getting like whiplash, right? And
Yeah.
then so like so trying to find my own moral compass, like games like Grand Theft Auto were this like really weird, Vice City. My best friend Matt in college had Vice City, and we were roommates for both in and out of college for a couple years. And so you'd play Vice City, and it'd be this mix of like, oh wow, that's so cool, and like, oh, I don't like that. Uh,
Yeah.
okay, I do like that, but I feel really guilty about it.
Yeah.
Or like,
Yeah.
like it's this like
Yeah.
constant tension between like, yeah, this is exactly what I want to do. No, that's actually gross.
Yeah.
Ooh, do I think that's gross, or is that
Yeah.
my stepmom and dad like in my head telling me that's
Right.
gross?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so like 4 I didn't really like. 5 I didn't play until the pandemic, which I think I've brought up before.
Yeah. You had your
Me and some
multiplayer, like,
multiplayer. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Doing the heists. I keep wanting to say Cabo San Lucas because that's what it's based off of, right? But it's an island like that, drug kingpin, and you got to go and do. You're
Yeah.
a heist team, okay? And like that was an incredibly fun experience. And then even outside of those heist missions, some of the sandbox stuff was wild. Did I tell the story about the big Inferno?
I think I've heard it maybe off air before, but I don't
Okay.
think you've ever told it on the show.
Okay, so real quick, we're doing these heist missions, right? And the idea is you have to go do a bunch of missions in the city to get like body armor or weapons or whatever. And there's multiple different ways you can crash this drug kingpin's island, up to and including using a Russian submarine, bought off surplus. Once you buy that, you can sneak in and swim in through the sewer grate, right? So super cool. But you have to do these prep missions, and the more prep missions you do, the easier the actual run is.
Yeah.
And so we were doing one of the prep missions, and we had a helicopter. We park our helicopter, we go inside, we shoot up these guys, we take their guns and bulletproof vests, and we come out, and everything is on fire. Everything is on fire. Just total conflagration, like 2 blocks. All the cars are on fire. Our helicopter is on fire. Oh, I should say, while we're in the mission, all of our our quest markers disappear. And we're like, what is going on? And then we come outside and everything's on fire. And we're like, so we start walking around. We're on, mic, we're on live chat. Like, I'm over here, like our helicopter's destroyed. All these cars are destroyed. A couple other people are walking around. We're like, what happened? And we slowly piece together that that a commercial airliner and a private plane,
Oh no.
all NPCs,
Yeah.
right? Like just in the world, collided in midair above our heads, landed on the streets, blew up all of everybody's stuff, including our helicopter, which is a required thing to run from thing to thing. And like, boom, our quest failed because our helicopter got destroyed.
Yeah. While
And
you
like,
were like doing something completely different.
yeah. And so just the emergent sandbox gameplay, the world lost track of 2 planes and they just collided together, and like unbelievable. And just the fact there's so many levels of like emergent things happening. We were all just like, I can't even be mad. That's incredible.
Yeah.
That was so
And
much
like
fun
you're still
to be a
talking
part of.
about it years later.
Years later. So
And like
yeah.
that, like you say, that sort of emergent gameplay of like the gameplay is the story, is the narrative, is
Right.
really compelling. Like I do really like that, and I enjoy it in stuff like Fallout 3. Like I have so many fun stories that happened because of just like the way, you know, the gameplay unfolded, right? And
Right.
that's unique to like my experience, and that's cool. But GTA was just never doing that for me. I also think it's interesting that specifically it took multiplayer for you to find your sort of fit
Right.
with that series. Like I found myself just drifting away from a lot of the major like non-Nintendo AAA releases these days in favor of
Mhm.
smaller titles, indie games. Like I'm playing Yoshi right now, I'm playing Mina the Hollower. But
Mhm.
you know, I got caught up in the Blueprints hype last year. That was a big hyped up
We're
indie
doing it
game.
now. We're doing it. It's swollen 4 of the 5 of us now. Every
Yes,
time I play Blueprints, we have to have 4 of us
and
together.
it's so good. So, you know, I'm not immune to hype, but like something like Pragmata and Marathon just have completely passed me by. And like for you, multiplayer was the key that unlocked Grand Theft Auto, but I've just found it so hard to get into like any multiplayer focused games. Like my friends were really into Helldivers too. And I played
Yeah.
a little bit with them, but just the time commitment of being there reliably and stuff is just so tricky. You know, I want to play something like Marathon, and Andrew in chat is saying like Marathon has a free week coming up from June 2nd to June 9th. That's cool. Like I'll probably give it a shot because it looks cool. But it's just like my schedule just doesn't really allow for those multiplayer games. So stuff like
Right.
MMOs, I like WoW, I like Final Fantasy 14, but I can play those on my schedule the way I play them.
Yes.
Never got
Yes.
into like raid groups and stuff like that, guilds, because it's just too hard for me to like chunk out
It
parts
is.
of my life that
It
other
is.
people are kind of relying on me for. That's what my kids do.
Exactly. And you know, your whole season, you know, we had kids early, but our youngest graduates from high school tomorrow.
Whew,
So that is
man,
incredible. That brings a whole lot of
congratulations.
scheduling stuff. Thank you. Thank you. They're crushing it. They're going to state. Uh
Nice.
Fourth, third generation Michigan State on my wife's side, fourth generation Michigan State on my side,
What are
because I
Spartans?
went Michigan State Spartans, that's right.
Hey.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. But then also, you know, it's like the season of your life where like you can't do stuff because of kids. It's like, all right, cool. I'm gonna have from when I'm, you know, 45, 46, 47 up through dead to like have raid groups and stuff,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Like
I think about
there's
that because my kids are quite a bit younger than yours.
yeah,
My eldest isn't even
yeah,
close to graduating high school. And I do think, like, I look at, you know, my parents and my in-laws, and I'm like, oh, okay, like, we will get back to a point where I can, like, go do stuff with my wife, just the two of us, and, like, you know, or I can have time where, like, you know,
yes,
every Tuesday and Thursday I spend time. Maybe it's playing Magic cards with my friends, or maybe it's getting into,
yeah,
like, a multiplayer game more seriously. But, you
for
know,
sure. And then
trade
also
off is
just
worth it. Like family life is awesome, but it is like it does make it hard.
yeah, and then when your kids get older, you're doing stuff together. You're playing
Yeah.
blueprints together. You're playing
Well,
magic
and
cards
you know what?
together,
And
right?
that's
Like,
sort of, I guess that's my raid group, right? Like it is playing with my kids. They're my friend group for multiplayer games, playing Mario Kart,
100%.
or we're playing Animal Crossing, or even just sitting down like hanging out while they're playing Tomodachi Life and they're showing me their island and all that kind of stuff. You know, it is still there, just in a different way, I suppose.
All right, well, folks, we could go on like this forever, but we have an issue to look at. We have a review to do. It is time to open the cover and get started. If you're not already a member of Fun Factor Ultra, watching us stream this session live in the chat, getting ad-free episodes, hang tight through this break. When we come back, we will flip through Game Informer number 105 from January 2002 and their review of Final Fantasy X. Welcome back to Fun Factor, where two old gamers review old video game magazine reviews. Of course, we want you to review us. Do we get a full 5.0 in Fun Factor? Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, and we'll read the best, funniest, kindest, and most entertaining ones on the air. All right, Aidan, what is the deal with Game Informer?
All right. So Game Informer, as we know, it was popularized. I guess it started life as like a newsletter for GameStop or Babbage's. I don't know the American
Funcoland, I think?
brands, Funcoland.
Yeah.
You know, but progressed into just one of the most important, iconic gaming mags ever, and now they're like an indie operation, which is really cool. You know, a lot
Very.
of respect for that. And they've been around forever as well, which is the other important thing. Like, unlike the other magazines that have like come and gone and reached a peak like EGM, but then disappeared, like Game Informer has just been around forever. And so they've covered everything. This issue, number 105 from January 2002, has Final Fantasy X on the cover, which I think is pretty cool.
Yes.
This issue has a page count of 126, which is starting to catch up with what this era looks like. In the mid 90s, Game Informer was kind of slim when you had 300 plus page count and stuff like EGM. But this issue, you know, at 126 with like feature editorial, lots of reviews, quite a few ads, feels pretty matched up with its contemporaries. Number of games reviewed in this issue, 56. Jesus.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's a
That's
lot.
a lot.
Number of systems reviewed for is even higher, like a zillion, because there's a breakout review on page 117, and they list it as a multi-platform game, and Breakout has been on pretty much every console of all time. But otherwise, more realistically, it's 11. So we have PC, Dreamcast, GameCube, PlayStation 2, Game Boy Advance, Xbox, PlayStation 1, SNES, Apple IIe, Sega CD, and Genesis.
Wow.
It's a lot of reviews, a lot of systems.
So they've got a retro. I mean, I'm assuming we'll get there, but like that's fascinating.
Yeah. So they have a section at the back, which is like retro coverage and then retro reviews. And that's where we get not the PlayStation, but the SNES, Apple IIe, Sega CD, and Genesis reviews, and the Breakout review, of course. But yeah, a lot of reviews. Looking at the masthead, which starts on page 17. We'll get to it in a second because I don't want to spoil what's coming up in the flip through.
All right.
But we've got the masthead kicking off with publisher Kathy Preston, Games Media Hall of Famer Andy McNamara as the EIC, who we've previously mentioned on episodes. Right under Andy, we've got editors Andrew Reiner, Matt Hagelson, Christian Brogger, Justin Leeper, Matthew Cato, and John Storm. Then there's the mascot Arthur, who's a dog, I guess. Art director Thomas Bluston, production director Curtis Fung, and production assistant Rachel Gillies round out the masthead. It's pretty small considering like the number of reviews in this issue. And really, the reviewers are Andy Reiner, Matt, Christian, Justin, and Cato. So like small review crew, small overall masthead for like a pretty content-rich magazine.
Yeah, and if I'm remembering from the first one we did, basically from like 95 on, there's like no turnover at this magazine.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, the short tenured people were there for like 14 years.
Yeah.
You know, it's the same real tight nucleus of people almost start to finish.
Once again, my once an episode lament about how we got into games media at the wrong time, Ty.
Yes. Yes.
But as we flip, I think we're ready for the flip through.
Yeah, let's
you
do
ready?
It. Flip through.
So on the cover, we've got a pretty striking image and like pretty striking cover, I would say, featuring a bunch of the recognizable like key art portraits from Final Fantasy X. So these are the character portraits you see everywhere, but they're remixed and like, you know, like photoshopped or whatever into a way that puts Tidus, you know, front and center. Feels pretty bold. It's low on text, just hyping up all the Final Fantasy X coverage, including, quote, complete strategy guide with weapon and summon locations, first review, interviews with development team, and a look at its place in history.
Pretty cool. My girl Riku is consigned to a depressingly tiny portion of this.
Yes,
but
yeah.
We've talked before. This is Game Informer. I should go back and look at kind of the spread of covers because they didn't have a big in-house art team, so their covers tended to range from wildly strong to pretty weak, based on how strong the art they were using, because it was usually official assets or something that was commissioned or whatever from the PR team. So they usually were pretty good at laying out graphics provided by somebody else, and this is a
Yes.
perfect example.
And notably, they're not using in-game artwork here.
Right.
You know, which helps, I think, but it's also funny because you can see, like, you know, glow effect on Orin, and Titus's hair. So you know that they were like clipping this out of like larger art, right? They weren't handling
Yes.
like transparent PNGs. So they had some rough edges that they had to, like, you know, mask, which, you know, I do all the time. I do for our YouTube thumbnails.
Absolutely.
You get those rough edges and so you put a border around it and they go away. But all in all, I would say it's a pretty striking cover. Tucked right above the magazine's title, quite easily lost, which would be like the big feature for most issues of other magazines, as a tagline for the, quote, 10th Annual Video Game Awards, which are not the Keeleys. This is Game Informer's long-running Video Game Awards, which we will get to later. It's all, like, you know, exceptionally clean, owing, I think, likely to its corporate ties, not needing to compete against other gaming mags on the grocery store shelves. You know, so they weren't trying to cram everything on the cover and say, hey, we're the most important of these magazines. Buy us, not the other ones. And that's always been Game Informer's thing as they've gotten older. And now that they're indie, their covers are super clean, even though they are in bookstore bookshelves. They don't have that EB Games or GameStop tie anymore, where they're being handed out with like edge cards or whatever. But they've still gone with that super clean look with like beautiful art. And I would say that cover art is like a strength of current Game Informer issues as like an ongoing magazine that still exists. And of course, their cover stories are always big news. They always get big exclusives.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
And so that was like, I think Access was what Game Informer did best. And we're seeing that here. You know, they're just like, we got Final Fantasy X. We got everything you want. Buy us, pick us up. But let's get to the actual flip through. We're going to start the flip through. We're going to make a very brief stop on pages 5 and 6 to appreciate your boy, Kinetica again, as always. And then we're going to skip right past that.
Wait, hold on, go back one more. I want to know, because I kind of queued this up on my side also. One last note on the ridiculous of the Kinetica.
Yeah.
Note that all of the speed lines are in one direction and none of the wheels
are going that direction.
Like, not real. Yeah. Like, you wouldn't, like, there's no hope of rolling in that direction as configured. Very funny. Okay. All right.
That's a good pull. That's good, Ty. I did not notice that.
This isn't even possible, sort of, even in the fiction where this is something possible and cool.
Yeah.
Just terrible.
Yeah, if those speed lines are going in that direction, she is not. She's having a tough.
She's
tough
sliding
race.
on her knee.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Okay, skipping past Kinetica, we have the greatest 3D fighter of all time, Dead or Alive 3.
If you do some research, and it is necessary in every aspect of game development to do research, you will see that breasts really don't rotate this way. Oh, excuse me.
Yes, as pronounced by Xbox Official Magazine and
yes,
other
that's right. OXM, shout out to OXM. Here we have the masthead that I skipped reading earlier on page 18. We have the Editors Forum, which is, you know, we have Andy McNamara's editorial as EIC, but several of the other editors, Reiner, Matt, Christian, Justin, Kato, all also get sort of a little blog style editorial area to write whatever they want to write about. And I think that's a pretty cute and good idea. Something I would have loved to have seen other magazines do.
Whenever I meet one of my thousands of fans out in public, they usually start our conversation with one question. Aren't you that guy from ER? Great. Thank you, Matt, the original gamer.
Excellent. Good stuff. There are two Matts. That must be Matt Hagelson. Which guy from ER does he look like? I don't know ER. But in any case, and it's nice too because, you know, Kato's is like referring to his column from the month previous and stuff. So just a cool little idea to give each editor sort of editorial space to talk about whatever they want, the same way that an EIC usually does. Andy McNamara says, like, you know, in his editorial, he talks about getting hate mail, which was interesting. And so he uses it to talk about the GameCube. But we are going to carry on to page 22. We have early aughts, mainstay, Jason Biggs, playing PlayStation 2. And I swear to God, Ty, this is the exact same photo we saw in a previous episode. This is also just another reminder of how hard they were trying to link video games to celebrity culture in the early aughts. But like, besides Biggs, David Spade, Monica Geller, and her husband, David Arquette, I think that Kaz Hirai, but he's not a celebrity. He's the Sony guy. I don't know who any of these people are. Oh, well,
there's
Alicia Keys,
Korn, right? Is that
which
Monkey?
is Alicia Keys was a pretty good get for like a Sony PS2 anniversary party, but she's also not even there to play video games. She's performing.
Fieldy.
Calling these A-list stars, bit of a stretch.
Relatively, yeah. But like again, by video game party standards of the time.
It's just like the American Pie cast. Like, I don't know. It's just
Man,
funny.
and
It's funny
after
how
watching
hard they want it to like.
Friend of the show, Pandemonium's digital pictures
Yes.
retrospective, which 8.5 hours that you absolutely should make time for. Incredible stuff. The way that the digital pictures was edging around Hollywood and interfacing with Hollywood and getting all these, fascinating stuff.
Trying hard, right? Like to move
Yes.
into that moving picture space, I guess, movies, rather than like kind of being their own thing. And I think it's good that we've gotten away from that. You know, we have lots of celebrity voice actors, likenesses, but I'm glad that we got away from that area. Page 26 features some letter art of Captain America that would make Rob Liefeld proud.
Yeah.
More notably, however, it's from, I believe, the first person I actually recognize from the letter section of one of these magazines. Paul Tassi, who sent this in, is a Forbes games journalist with many reviews listed on Open Critic.
Whoa!
Yeah. I'm assuming this is the same Paul Tassi. But yeah, pretty neat to actually recognize a name in and amongst all of this.
Okay, can we see the Kano versus Parappa
Hey,
letter down here?
Oh yes, okay, here we go.
That's fantastic.
Here we go. Look at that. That's pretty good.
That's strong.
Kano is in like
Simpsons style,
I guess. Yeah,
that's a pretty good Simpsons style.
It's pretty good. I know. Yeah, I like the big hole, like the 3D hole in his chest and stuff. It's like pretty slick. Some other good. Not sure what that one is. Some Metroid art that's not very Metroid-y. Yeah, some more art I don't recognize. And
an Italian to bring a spear to an axe fight. I don't remember any spear carrying Italians.
In any case, always love the envelope art, and Paul Tassi being in there was interesting. Sure. We are going to keep going to page 30 for GI News, which I assume stands for gastrointestinal news. First,
not to step on your joke from the script, it got me. Oh my gosh, that's great.
It's one of the pictures here. This is about the Xbox and GameCube launch. One photo here has Bill Gates slumming it with the normies, presumably holding back some diarrhea or something. We have Minnesota's first Xbox owner, Jim Heitke, who definitely looks like he's holding back some squirts.
Oh, yeah.
And a GameStop employee so nauseous their hair has turned Xbox green. A lot of GI news, a lot of gastrointestinal news in this issue.
Yes. Man.
Then later in gastrointestinal news,
he really, this looks like this guy definitely camped out for 36 hours.
Oh yeah.
This is hour 37. He's in rough shape, man. That's tough.
Yeah. And his reward for that is an Xbox. He did get Halo. One of the great, there's some like subversive advertising. I missed this when I was writing my script, but if we zoom in down here, what do we have? Game Informer.
Oh, nice.
Like recursive advertising.
Yeah.
It's cool. It's fun to watch coverage of the Xbox and GameCube launch, they have a little interview with Bill Gates, though I don't know if it's an actual interview. Yeah, it's an interview with Bill Gates, and then talk about Microsoft pushes PlayStation 3 and a rendering of the PlayStation 3, which is quite funny looking. On page 32, in the middle of this orange bar with a baby beside it, we have developer top 5 with Victor Ireland. It seems like a list of the least Victor Ireland games of all time, known for working designs and RPGs like Ark the Lad on the opposite page here as an ad, Lunar and all of that. Victor Ireland lists his top 10 as SSX, Devil May Cry, Twisted Metal Black, Eco, and Klonoa 2, which just not what I would have expected from Victor Ireland. Page
Eco I could
36,
see, but hey, I mean, they're bangers. No question.
Twisted Metal Black is sus. The rest are good. The rest are absolutely good. But page 36, we have news of SNK shutting down, which is weird because SNK is famously still around and the subject of much controversy these days. They were, of course, there were acquisitions and all sorts of weird stuff that have happened since. But it is interesting to go back and look at, here's a quote here. It says, quote, "It is with deepest grief that in the autumn of 2001, SNK will close the company history in its business. We'd like to take this as an opportunity to thank each and every one of you for your continuous and help and assistance rendered to SNK since its incorporation in Japan in July 1978. SNK is still around, outlived pretty much every gaming mag except Game Informer here."
Yeah.
Page 40, we're kind of past the news section, and this kicks off a terrific, beautiful retrospective of Final Fantasy and Hironobu Sakaguchi's work, which, like, honestly, I would love to spend a whole episode just looking at this. These first 2 pages, there's a nice cover art there with, box art of Sakaguchi's games. And then as we move on, we have like a developer interview that's sort of editorialized with, looking at Final Fantasy, but, 10, the development of Final Fantasy 10, I suppose. But it has, director Yoshinori Kitase, artist Tetsuya Nomura. And it just kind of looks at Final Fantasy X's development and tries to tell that story. It's pretty short, but it's full of good stuff, and the screenshots as well are looking really slick. So just a nicely laid out feature area, looking at Final Fantasy X, which links into, of course, this issue's big review.
Pretty wild how strong it would still be to get a sit down with Kitase and Nomura about the history of Final Fantasy now, right? How relevant that would still be.
Yeah, I mean, I've done interviews with the Final Fantasy team, but they're definitely focused on whatever game they're putting out now.
Yes.
And so, like, you would get access for Final Fantasy X, but getting, like, the ability to ask questions about the series pass and contextualizing stuff and not talking directly about like marketable Final Fantasy X aspects would be really hard.
I think I've read multiple people talk about today, like if you want to talk to Hironobu Sakaguchi, you get one whatever mobile game he's working on question.
Chris Kohler, who is like longtime games journalist for Wired and Kotaku, like friend of Retronauts, like he has access and he's covered games for a long time, and now he works for Digital Eclipse. He wrote a book for Boss Fight Books about Final Fantasy V, and like all of his Hironobu Sakaguchi quotes, like directly about Final Fantasy V, come from like interview he hosted on stage, where he basically just like he was talking to Sakaguchi about something and then just started peppering him with like specific Final Fantasy history and Final Fantasy V questions, and that was the only way he could get Sakaguchi on record about these older games, because a lot of it is so kind of gatekept by PR and stuff nowadays. So pretty cool little spot. And you're also getting, like with Kitase and Nomura, you're getting such a strong look into the people who sort of took over Final Fantasy, because Sakaguchi, of course, left not long after this when
Yeah.
The spirits within crashed. And so, you're getting to see the people who took Final Fantasy X and moved the series forward, which we'll get to in a little bit. Page 44, we have the other big feature, which is their, quote, games of 2001. Not top games. Not best games.
These are games of 2001.
They're games of 2001. Presumably, this top 10 represents a ranked hierarchical scale of the best games of the year. We have Star Wars Rogue Leader for the GameCube at number 10. Halo, shockingly low, at number 9.
It was barely a game of 2001.
Barely a game of 2001.
That's
which is
wild.
Pretty
at 9,
wild.
Though, still.
Number 8, Legend of Zelda Oracle of Ages. Heck yeah. Good game.
Better than Halo. This is what they always call it.
Probably is better. I don't love the Capcom Zeldas on Game Boy Color, but it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Number 7, Devil May Cry. Number 6, Max Payne. Number 5, Twisted Metal Black, which again, like, for me, Twisted Metal Black's the one on this list that I'm like, I don't know if that aged great at number 5. Not to say, I don't even know if it's holds up well, but it's not, Devil May Cry, Halo, Max Payne, like, these are games that, like, really kind of stand out in the history of this period. We have number 4, Gran Turismo 3 A-Spec, which is a great game.
One of the best of the series. Yeah.
So, like, Twisted Metal Black is up against some heavy hitters. The top 3, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3. 1 and 2 are my favorites, but 3 is great as well. Number 2, Grand Theft Auto 3. One of the biggest games of all time. Best sleeper game of the year, Advance Wars. Fabulous pick. Love it. Number 1, Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty. Which I like it because, like, Metal Gear Solid 2, like, as we discussed in the episode, it was divisive because of, its big rug pull and what it did for the series and stuff. But I think it holds up really well. And I think that of all the games on this list, to me, it's the best. Outside of maybe Halo is number 1 in hindsight. But, and, with the caveat that I'm not big on Grand Theft Auto.
Right.
What do you think of this list, Ty?
Yeah, no, it's good. It's also, I meant to check exactly when Vice City was released.
Yeah.
Because to me, Vice City was just the way more culturally, like, GTA 3 was a big hit, no question.
Yeah, but Vice City's when it kind of became.
That was the sensation.
Yeah.
The Miami Vice vibes, the soundtrack, Ray Liotta, all that stuff was like, that was huge.
Yeah.
And then, again, GT3A was gigantic. I think it was even a pack-in game. They made a separate PS2 bundle.
Right. Yeah.
GTA 3. And so, like, I'm not GTA 3. Gran Turismo 3 A-Spec.
A-Spec. Yeah.
GT3A.
GT3AS.
Yeah, there you go. So, like, don't look down on that as one as a huge one in history as well. But also, it's very funny getting this, like, Oscars vibes where it's like, yes, the best picture of the year was released in New York and LA on December 14th, and you normals can go see it now in the middle of February. Like, okay, all right, I guess,
totally,
whatever.
Totally. It's good.
The
good
games
stuff.
of 2001 were all these games that came out right before Christmas.
Yeah, pretty packed for sure. Blunder of the year, Xbox controller. Like, it's wild that even then, like, they were covering the Xbox launch in this episode. After the top 10, which is full of bangers, we have a ton of previews and ads for some, like, incredibly mid games, Ty. Reckless, Jaeger, Spider-Man the movie, Airblade. There's Jaeger, Malice, Cat's Tail, cat being spelled with a K, tails being spelled Tale. So, like, double pun.
Is this Jaeger? Like Chuck Yeager? I bet that's what it's. That's
I don't
stupid.
even know who Chuck Yeager is, so
he was a famous American test pilot. He was the first guy to break the speed of sound in an aircraft.
Okay, I guess so.
Which is real dumb because that was like 1964.
Yeah,
like, oh yeah,
right.
Space combat.
But, like, you kind of see how you have, like, you would have had boomer execs kind of like drawn to stories like that.
100%.
Right. Whereas like
100%.
now, 20 years later, we have all these debates about like, who's this game for? Why is it referencing this or that or whatever? And it's like, well, because a bunch of millennials are making it and Gen X are the ones that are approving it. So it's interesting to see sort of those generational like stories persevering. We've got Command and Conquer, Renegade, Blood Omen 2, finally a banger in Silent Hill 2 Restless Dreams. But it also gets a small preview. So like the thing that really stands out to me is that with all the like all-time classics released and reviewed in this period, like Halo, like Metal Gear Solid 2, like Grand Theft Auto 3, like Final Fantasy 10, the future release schedule, at least according to this issue, is like pretty soft.
Yeah, and I feel like we had some better previews in other magazines, because this is our 4th January 2002 we're looking at. And I know Reckless was in Xbox Official Magazine, but they also had, and here's Xbox Official Magazine, right? They had a bunch of other exclusive previews and stuff. They had the fighting game that didn't have a game part yet, only characters and vibes. They had the was it Enclave, the one with the 1080p graphics? They had like a bunch of stuff in their previews that this doesn't have. And also, as Andy McNamara's noted up front in the letter from the editor, they didn't have a GameCube dev kit that could play third-party games, so they don't have any GameCube coverage either. So that kind of put them way behind on some of these previews, which makes
interesting.
And I'm sure it still wasn't like, hey, mega massive gigantic Christmas season and then nothing after is not that surprising, but also it looks worse in this magazine than any of the other issues we've looked at.
You're sort of in that like dead zone, because E3 was like in that announcement period, sort of in the late spring. We were starting to get into that cyclical like area where they were starting to control messaging a little bit more, I think. But yeah, so I'd be curious then to look at some of the Christmas issues. Like we'll get there later in the season, like from later in this year, like what were some of the big releases this year that weren't kind of covered here?
Okay, well, no matter how great or not the writing is in these classic game magazines, our favorite writing to read is yours. When we come back from this ad break, we will read your reviews of our reviews of classic video game magazine reviews right here on Fun Factor. We've got mail. As promised, we always review the best, funniest, kindest, and most entertaining 5-star Apple Podcast reviews on the air. Bonus points if you say who your favorite host is and why. Double bonus points if it's Aidan. Of course, we also look at your YouTube comments. We try to reply as quickly as we can because we love the interaction. And you guys always have great comments. Jason WFD is always there chatting it up in the YouTube comments as well, which we super appreciate. But Aidan, we have a review, 5 stars on Apple Podcast from Georgie Boy's Axe. Let's see here. Title is A Retro Podcast That's Different in All the Right Ways. Magnificent. We love it. For all of the gaming schmucks who rush to their local newsstand or mailbox to read their beloved gaming rags, this show is for you. There is a ton of passion and a lot of expertise here from folks who are doing it for the love of the game, and 100x better than any slop-fueled vintage post being fed to you by the algorithm. Not bad.
Love it.
I will
love
take
it.
That.
And just shout out for Georgie and Press Pause Radio, which Georgie hosts. Fabulous podcast looking at and covering video games. Also great streams on Twitch. And Georgie has one of the most impressive retro setups I've ever seen.
Oh, wow.
I was looking at some pictures and it's like, I've got a pretty good setup. I got nothing on Georgie. Impressive stuff. So having readers like Georgie and friends of the show like Georgie writing those reviews is like, it honestly means the world. It makes my day and my week. So thanks so much.
All right. Well, thank you so much to Georgie Boy's Axe. And check out Georgie's podcast. Again, leave a rating, leave a review wherever you get your media. Apple Podcasts is probably the best in terms of algorithm and whatnot for us, but just talking it on YouTube, sharing it wherever, on Twitch when Aidan is streaming. Super cool. We appreciate all of it. And we will get back to Game Informer right here on Fun Factor. We're having 5 stars worth of 5 stars out of fun today. If you are too, again, please leave a rating and review wherever you get your podcasts. We super appreciate it. Make sure to shout us out on social media because spreading the word hand to hand, mouth to ear is how we get attention, how we get ears and eyeballs on the work that we're doing. We love to do it. We want to do it for as many of you as we can. We will read the best, kindest, and funniest, and most entertaining reviews on the air. But hey, it is time to review Game Informer's review of... Wait, which one are we doing?
Final Fantasy X.
Final Fantasy X. Right, I was like, we did the big preview, walkthrough, interview thing, and then I was like, wait, this is Final Fantasy X. Okay, Final Fantasy X. Review format, go.
Okay, so up front, Game Informer seems to use a pretty straightforward review system. There are, 6 reviewers. They have a 10-point scale, but it uses quarter marks. So like 10.25, 10.5. So it's actually like, I think, a 40-point scale. Most games have a primary reviewer rating the game on that 10-point scale with quarter points. 10 is perfection, one of the best games of all time. 9 is worth owning. 8
Steep
is
drop off. Steep drop
off for sure, for sure. 8 is worth playing. 7 is worth renting, and 6 is limited appeal.
7 is worth renting.
I kind of like this though. I like being like, play this, but like don't invest too much money into it. It's worth your time, but not your money. 5 and below though is garbage, quote unquote garbage. So really it's a 6-point scale, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5 and below. But it has quarter points, so it's really like 24-point scale.
Something
or
like
20-point scale. Is it like 10 with quarter points, 10 3 6 with quarter points, 5 and below has quarter points but they don't matter? I don't know. Math's not my thing. It's weird. It's complex.
Yeah.
Don't do this, people.
No.
Don't do this.
No.
Don't do this. Games receive either a full-length review, which is what we'll look at with Final Fantasy X, accompanied by a score, small scoreless breakout capsule comments for, quote, concept, graphics, sound, playability, entertainment, and replay value, and then another scored second opinion capsule review. So in some ways very similar to like what we were seeing in Game Players in the late 90s, where you had a main reviewer, you had a second opinion, you had some like specific metrics, and then an overall score. The difference being there's no weighted scoring happening between the playability, entertainment, replay value stuff and the main review score. It's just one number. There's a lot going on here, and it seems simple at first.
Yeah, I mean, cool. This is pretty standard with the bullet points and pulling out graphics, sound, whatever. I like that they haven't done it into these facets all have to be scored individually, and then we have some extremely math way to pile that up into a true objective overall score. Because as we've talked about a lot of times, there are some very clear examples where that is not what's actually happening. They're giving it a score and then reverse engineering. But yeah, like you say, the 6-point, basically 5-star or 6-star scale, perfection, worth owning, worth playing, worth renting, limited appeal, and garbage. And then the whole bottom half of the scale is just for decoration. In a sense, it makes a sense. And it's probably, the most accurate way of describing the Metacritic. Like, we all know what a 10 is. We all know what a 9 is. We all know what 8 is. We all know what a 7 is. I still think for me, the 8 is worth playing. I would give any 8 a worth buying, right? Like, to me, like, even if we're doing 100%. This scale, the drop off from 10 is perfection, one of the best games of all time, to 9 is, this is worth the money if you pay for it. Like, that seems like a gigantic drop off to me. And I'm gonna bet that they don't stick that close to that actual scale, just like last month with Xbox Official Magazine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like even like the way to describe a 9, quote, fans of the genre should definitely enjoy this game, but even those who don't normally like this type of game may find themselves getting hooked. For me, that like describes a 7, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like it's good and it's going to appeal to people who love this genre, but it's weird enough that it might appeal to people outside of that. Like, so, you know, I think they try to add a lot of words to like this numerical scale that just muddies the water a little bit more.
Yeah.
But we are going to get on to let's get on to the review of Final Fantasy X. It's right here on the opposite page. The cover, I guess, of the review section. Final Fantasy X. It has the iconic key art of Tidus and Yuna in the pond, which is one of the like great moments in Final Fantasy X. But even as somebody who doesn't love Final Fantasy X, one of the great moments I think in kind of video game narrative history.
And then we could see Blitzball.
That's right.
Your Xanark and Aves would play?
Yeah.
We could all watch you play, in the stadium all lit up at night. I'd cheer and cheer till I couldn't cheer anymore.
Yeah, right on.
It also lists and announces the game of the month, Final Fantasy X. It says, quote, with an undying devotion to changing the way people perceive role-playing games, Squaresoft has completely altered the status quo for RPGs in Final Fantasy X. From spoken dialogue to combat innovations, nothing can prepare you for the adventure ahead. Final Fantasy X is a landmark release and one of Square's finest titles to date. No byline on that, but presumably written by either whoever edits the review section or the reviewer themselves. And here we go. Final Fantasy X. So we have a main review written by Reiner. It's on the left-hand page. It's a full, like, textual review. It's pretty chunky. I'd say probably like 250, 300 words, bordered by some great screenshots from the game, including cutscene stuff, but also gameplay stuff. Looks really good. On the opposite page, we have a lot more screenshots, some key art of Kamari, like a pull quote. And then on the far right column, we have the bottom line score, which was a 9.75 out of 10. Putting it firmly in the worth buying category, but not in the best games of all time category. And then we have the pull out like capsule section with concept. So it says, quote, the first talkie in the series featuring hours of spoken dialogue, realistic motion captured animation, and highly detailed CG cutscenes. Graphics, nothing short of a visual tour de force. Sound, arguably Nobuo Uematsu's best soundtrack to date. It is excellent. Playability, the refined combat system allows players to rotate party members, level up summons, and customize weapons. Entertainment is the quest is as linear as they come, which I'm glad to see them like mention. Yet additional story material, bonus battles, and hidden weapons can be obtained through side quests. The replay value is listed as moderately high, and then we have a second opinion score from Justin, which is also a 9.75. Before we really dig into this review, though, let's put a pause on things for a second because I want to skip ahead. So this is 9.75. This is almost a perfect score from Game Informer.
Yes.
I want to skip ahead to page 88 to look at what the opposite looks like. We have a 1-star review, a 1 out of 10 review here for VIP, released by Ubisoft on the PlayStation. Can you read this 1 out of 10 review from Matt for me, Ty?
If there was such a thing as game developer fraternities, I'd suspect VIP was the product of a Rush Week prank at the Ubisoft campus. Like the show it's based on, the game is so indescribably bad that it's almost good in its own weird way. Actually, it's not. It's not. In fact, it's absolutely horrible. It looks worse than Pam's new boyfriend, Kid Rock, after a bottle of Jack Daniels. Imagine Parappa meets Shrek fairy tale freak down in high heels and then start running. Perhaps someday you'll find this at a garage sale for 50 cents. If you do, I'd pick it up as a cheap reminder of just how bad games can be. Vicious.
Yikes. Parappa catching some strays here. Was this a rhythm game? I barely know what VIP is. It was like a Charlie's Angel type like show with Pamela Anderson, right?
Okay.
I think.
Yeah.
Val, tell me again what happened to the old figurehead. Was he killed or something?
They promised me I'd never even touch a gun, so I'm sure we can just get rid of all that stuff.
Yeah, Val, are you sure you've thought this all the way through?
I really like the Jag.
I assume that's why she's mentioned. I think that's her in the picture. I don't know. I don't really remember the show. But Parappa catching strays is like, that's not fair. But in any case, I would say, correct me if I'm wrong, Ty or chat, a 1 out of 10 is like as rare as a 10 out of 10.
Maybe
rarer, harder to make.
Probably rarer. Yeah.
Right? Like,
especially when they're like anything 5 or below is garbage and they give us a 1.
Yeah.
Like that's terrible.
Like that's bad. Like when you go to like the lowest of the low. Like we have Twisted Metal Small Brawl here. It got a 3. What else do we have? Shrek on the Xbox, which of course was compared favorably in one of the previous episodes we did. They were like, hey, this or it was Oddworld Munch's Odyssey, and they were like, this doesn't look as good as Shrek. It got a 2 out of 10. Let's see if we have any other like super low scores here. We
honestly,
don't really.
That's more using the whole scale than most magazines do.
And that's what I wanted to look at is like they have the scale and it's so reductive in the way that it looks at like sub 5 scores, but then it actually uses some of the full scale as well, which is weird. Yeah, just very strange all around. Soldier of Fortune Gold got a 4. Stunt GP got a 4. Jeremy McGrath's Supercross World got a 4. Mummy Returns got a 2.5. So like they're using that scale under 5, but then lumping it all into something. So like what really is the difference between a 2.5 and a 4?
Interesting. Also, a quick shout out to the podcast Behind the Bastards. All of it's great, but their like multi-part episode on the guy behind Soldier of Fortune magazine is peak. It's so good. Very, very funny.
Love it. Let's get back to the review itself. Page 74. Reiner is the lead reviewer on this. With his textual review, like taking up the first whole page, like I said. And it's pretty beefy. Like I think it's pretty solid in terms of the way that it doesn't just give a rundown of like, oh, here's how you play the game, or it's not even really like a buyer's guide review, which I like a lot. Can you read his opening statement for me, Ty?
With each passing Final Fantasy release, Squaresoft continues to improve upon perfection, not only setting a new standard for role-playing games, but for video games as a whole. Without question, Final Fantasy X is Sakaguchi's most ambitious project yet, and is a radical departure from the formula we've become accustomed to. Tapping into every facet of the PlayStation 2 architecture, the development team has completely revolutionized every aspect within the storytelling. This may sound trivial in the grand scheme of things, but it's the biggest change the series has ever made.
Okay, before we get to my thoughts on this, because I have some, what's your experience with Final Fantasy X, Ty?
Yeah, played it, mostly loved it. I was terrified of the voice acting, and it was fine. It was pretty good. For those of you who don't know, I haven't done true professional VO work for games, but I actually have been involved in radio, especially since I was a little kid. My mom worked in advertising, and so, hey, I was a little kid who could read with inflection, so I got to do a bunch of local radio ads. I was the Gladstone's carpet kid here in Lansing, Michigan for a while. That was pretty rad. So, like, I have a little experience with that, and one of my best friends in high school growing up, Dave Beeson, is actually a professional voiceover actor and coach. So, like, again, I have a little experience with this, and so it was like, hey, this was pretty darn good.
You're
and
also involved in theater as well.
Yes, yeah.
So like
theater and stuff. Yeah. But my friend Dave at the time when this came out recognized Auron's voice actor just from dialogue. Like he came, like he listened. He's like, oh, that's so and so. Oh, did you know he played so and so? I'm like, what? You know, that's the same. No way, that's the same guy. And we like looked it up, and it was. He's like, I knew it. I was right. I'm like, oh, okay, all right. So this is pretty good. And I'll say, I too spent the first like 10 or 12 hours of the game just okay, like, but like, when do I get to like the overworld? Like, when do I get to like pick where I'm going? What do you when am I gonna get, you know? Like, and it wasn't until the very end of the game where it was like, okay, cool, here's the airship. You know, you're like, wow, okay.
And you still only get like nodes on a list too.
Yeah, you don't get free travel. So it was like fine, like I was like waiting for it, and then it wasn't happening, and I was really thrown by, oh wait, this whole thing is just linear, right? It's just okay. But then it was really good. The story was really good. The graphics were incredible. The music was incredible. The acting was good. And I, being a sports ball guy, loved Blitzball. I loved Blitzball. Lots of people hated Blitzball. I loved Blitzball. It wasn't perfect by a long shot, but like it was fun and intriguing enough that like I really liked it. And it games like the Captain Tsubasa series, which was probably at least a significant piece of the inspiration for it, has evolved into today. We're a lot more familiar with the idea of a sports game that's arcadey, and you have like battle anime moves and you know that kind of thing. So I think if you redid the Blitzball today, even as like a standalone thing, I think it could go crazy. My big problem with 10 was that I don't want to say I'm a dum-dum, but I'm a little bit of a dum-dum in that sometimes I'm, you know, even when I'm reading books, I get really wrapped up emotionally in the beat to beat moments.
Yeah.
And I can miss, you know, I'm often not thinking of it structurally, and especially when I was younger, right? Like I'm older, I've been more involved in like publishing and stuff and story, you know, story crafting, story writing and critique and that kind of thing. So I'm a little bit better at being more analytical when I consume stories like this.
Yeah.
But I was really thrown by the game's ending. I didn't like some of the signposting of what was going on. I missed.
Yeah.
And or went, and then forgot, you know, or like filed away as like what so the ending, I really did not find it satisfying or good at all. And also, and I'll hedge this in a second. My friend Dave, you know, beat it and then said, "Oh yeah, you kind of there's a good ending. You kind of got the bad ending. You have to 100% it to get the good ending." And every time I tell that anecdote, people come jumping at me and go, "Oh no, you're wrong. You're thinking of Final Fantasy X too." And I'm like, no. This was before 10.2 was released. This was when 10 was brand new and we played it. I don't know where he got that idea or what. I don't know, but like, so I spent.
That was the era, right? Of like,
right.
Yeah.
So like So he's, oh, you got to like get the strategy guide and 100% it. And I don't even know if that's true or not, because at the time I was kind of like, hey, that's baloney, right? Like, and I was so I hate the idea of you got to buy the strategy guide to play the game and have a good experience.
Yeah.
So that made me furious. It made me not want to revisit it, which I still really haven't.
Yeah.
And shading into 10.2, I bought 10.2 and played through the intro sequence, which I was like, well, this was not what I was expecting at all. But, you know, now that I think about it, if a bunch of teenagers saved the world, what would they do? They'd become teen celebrities, which are what? Pop stars. I mean, I guess. Okay. I was fine with that. The next thing that happens is the Albed come up out of the ocean speaking Albed, and it's untranslated, and you have to go find all the Albed dictionaries again. And that is when I rage quit, took the disc out of the PS2 and never played it again. And still haven't. Because I was just like, no, I cannot deal with strategy guide collectathon nonsense like this being front and center over exploration and story and role playing. So ultimately,
not to mention like 2 of your 3 party members, one of them is just straight up all bad, and the other one is like half all bad. So like,
it's just going to be that.
Yeah. You can just speak that language.
Yeah. And I was just like, and like, I was like, I did this already. I did this already. I think I got like 24 out of 26 or something in my first playthrough of 10. And I was like, this is insane. This is ridiculous. I'm not doing this again. But overall, I thought 10 was a fantastic push forward in a lot of ways. Presentation was incredible. I thought the story really worked. And honestly, it even though I hated the ending at the time, I bet if I replayed it, I would appreciate it a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I think even though the story wasn't what I wanted out of the game, I think it held a lot more true character-wise start to finish than something like 7 or 8, right? Where the characters are true to themselves the core conflicts of the story set up at the beginning
Yeah.
carry all the way through, in contrast to something like Chrono Cross, which would have been contemporary
Yeah.
like a year before, 2 years before, where it's like, kid shows up and is like, all right, we're radical dreamers, and then radical dreamers are not mentioned again the entire game. Right, like that kind of stuff where this is a cohesive start to finish plot,
Yeah.
like
Character
a
is
movie.
plot in this game. Like they're
Yes.
kind of tied inextricably.
Yes.
And I would say that 9 does it as well. But
Yes.
7 is like, does it to a degree, right? Like Cloud and his relationships form the core of the story. But you're, yeah, I see.
But also,
what you're saying.
there's plenty of moments in 7 where you're like, I don't
Yeah.
really understand what's going on. This is not the
Yes.
same Cloud that was talking 2 hours ago.
Yeah.
And like that itself is part of the story, but even knowing that, it still doesn't feel coherent start to finish in the same way that 10 does.
Yeah, totally. I won't go into Final Fantasy X too hard. I've talked about it a lot, and I've talked about Final Fantasy X a lot, and like as somebody with a background in like criticism, specifically with books and narrative, like I do think about the structural elements of the game a lot, and I do like the ending because of that. But I think that Final Fantasy X, especially at its beginning, has so many structural issues that undermine what's going on. That I think it's interesting that you sort of like blame a blindness to structural issues as like one of the reasons you have issue with the game, despite liking a lot of it. Whereas for me, I'm like, oh no, the structural issues are the reason why the game doesn't work very well. But in any case, I want to get back to what Reiner said in the beginning of his review, because I think, and this is going to sound weird as somebody who doesn't really care for Final Fantasy X, I think he's very superlative, but objectively, he's pretty accurate in what he says. Final Fantasy X was Sakaguchi's most ambitious project. It did change the series fundamentally, and it tapped into PlayStation 2's potential from like a presentation standpoint. But, and this is like where I usually get myself into trouble when discussing Final Fantasy X, I think most of those elements actually hurt the series long term. And I think that the series benefited from creative constraints. I think the move into like a higher fidelity virtual medium took away from sort of the emergent gameplay that we talked about earlier, where like you being in the game and the world is a big part of the story, to, hey, this is sort of like a linear long movie that you can play, but playing is really just going from cutscene to cutscene to cutscene to cutscene.
Yeah.
And that is what Final Fantasy 13 is heavily criticized for, being a hallway simulator. It's all there in Final Fantasy 10 though. Like all the things that are, I think, at issue with like modern Final Fantasies started here with 10. And so like when Reiner says all of those things, like, yeah, it was ambitious. Like Sakaguchi did always want to make movies, and this was his kind of first step towards that. But it's also when we got into this higher fidelity area that started causing serious delays with future Final Fantasy games. And then Sakaguchi leaving after this, when he made a lot of these dramatic presentational and structural changes to the series, then left the remaining team with this idea that they had to like reinvent the wheel over and over and over again with every new game, which was not the case with early Final Fantasy, right? Like early Final Fantasy was iterative, and they'd make changes within structures that already worked, right? ATB was introduced in Final Fantasy IV, and it stuck with the series through Final Fantasy IX because it worked. It was great. They changed the level up or the character building mechanics within that. Final Fantasy VI changed the structure of the game, but kept ATB. Final Fantasy VII introduced more like linear storytelling to a degree, but, you know, had the materia system, which offered a lot of customization. You know, they were recognizable from one another, but Final Fantasy X being so different, I think created this impression that it needed to be so different to be a Final Fantasy. And I think that that comes into a weakness of the later games that have led to some of these major delays. And like, I love games that have come after Final Fantasy X. I love Final Fantasy 12. It's fabulous. I even have a soft spot for Final Fantasy 15, which is very flawed. But I think that long term, the series would have been better off if it hadn't felt like it had to chase Final Fantasy X. If it had recognized Final Fantasy X as like one version of Final Fantasy, and that Final Fantasy can be anything else. And I think that we're also seeing the RPG scene with stuff like Clair Obscur going back and looking at some of that early, like not even early, but like late 90s RPG gameplay and being like, oh, hey, this wasn't like a compromise. This was a good piece of game design. And that's worth exploring more. It doesn't like, we don't have to throw out the past to make something great for the future. And I think that all started with Final Fantasy X.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I really liked something that doing the Final Fantasy VIII retrospective post show with Lord Druby, very good friend of the show, one of the friendiest friends of the show.
Yes.
Really helped me appreciate how a little bit the these are guys, Squaresoft at this point, Sakaguchi and those, this started in the 80s. Here we are in 2001, 2002. And they've been building on what they started 20 years ago, right? 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And iterating on this in a lot of ways. And then their audience has been playing too, right? So for me, like the first JRPG I played was Chrono Trigger, which in some ways is like the apex of the 16-bit JRPG form, right? So I'm just getting into this stuff. And I'm getting into this stuff as soon as the creators and mainstream audience are like, hey, it's time for something new. We're kind of bored with these formulas, right? Yeah. And so like the Magicite stuff in 6 led to the Materia stuff in 7, a lot of the similar things, right? 8, they're like, we need to totally break this. 9 is kind of back to basics in some ways, but changes some other stuff. Some of these other non-mainline Final Fantasy games, Chrono Cross's combat system is brilliant and a big departure, right? Yeah. So they're like, how do we change this up? How do we make this more realistic, less realistic, more magic, less magic, more character action, more, abstract? Yeah. Like they're trying different stuff, and 10's system is built into this more movie-like system, right? This more like we're going in this direction of you're controlling characters and then they're doing stuff and you're seeing it. It looks like a movie, right? Yeah. And we're heading towards the Final Fantasy VII Remake series, and to an extent 16 too, right? So like that's like a cool creative decision by this team, many core members of which are still involved in either the remake series or the mainline development. So like I get that, but also like you say, there's lots of other indies and people who grew up our age, our generation, or a little above or below, going, hey, here are these forgotten evolutionary paths here. Let's iterate on, let's go back to late 16-bit, early 32-bit, and let's build from there, not in this way where that's movie like and action like. And that's valid too, right? So I think 10 for me, and I'm going to read a little bit from Reiner's review here. Yeah. My only complaint has to do with the structure of the quest. The Final Fantasy games are traditionally linear, but this one redefines the term. You cannot backtrack until later in the game, and the overworld has been completely removed. You simply move from location to location via a cursor on a map. I don't know about you, but I always enjoyed having the freedom to leisurely move about the world, perhaps on back of a chocobo. You can't do this anymore. Every environment is completely sectioned off from the others. Sadly, you don't even get to take control of the airship. And even the last sentence of the review is, even if you don't approve of all the changes Squaresoft has installed, I'm sure you'll agree Final Fantasy X is a breakthrough release, a visionary tale, and a masterpiece for the ages. Yeah. And for me, like, I don't want to be like a Star Wars person. Like, well, you don't even get to take control of the airship, Yeah. But like, that rush of, we got the airship, let's go. And like the music, this is the airship music. This is good.
It's
and
like an iconic part of the clouds.
Series. It's a big part of the series, and it's a big part of that Final Fantasy. Like, this is the fantasy. This is the thing. Oh, it's on now. It's popped off. You really get the whole world at your fingertips, right? You really have the world has opened up for you, and you get that moment when you leave the first town. A lot of times you go into the overworld, you see the map open up, you're like, oh man, like, look at all these possibilities. Right? And like, even though you're moving through the world of 10, the possibilities are opening up in front of you, and they're
Yeah.
cool,
Yeah.
the you can only think about what am I going to get shown next, not
Yeah.
where can I go next or what can I do
Yes.
next.
Yeah.
And so like that is definitely a lessening of that sense of fantasy and adventure for me.
There's like a lot less agency within the game than what you've come
Yeah.
to expect from the series. And they tried to like compensate for the linear story by having the battle system where you can like swap characters in and out. They all have strengths. Like
Yes.
Waka is strong against flying enemies. You know, Oron can cut through like armored enemies. But even that becomes linear because every battle, like enemy configuration, has an optimal strategy for how to address it and like which order to bring your characters in, which skills to use. That even like because I recently played through Final Fantasy X again, like last year on the Switch. And it's like even combat. Boss battles are fun, but combat in the overworld becomes just as linear as a regular game. There's no agency. There's a best way to do this. And you can't take out flying enemies with anyone except Waka. So you have to bring him in. There's not like builds. And I think Final Fantasy VII, and to kind of touch on what I think you're saying, the Final Fantasy VII Remake, I think it's so successful, that series, because it understands like the emotional like resonance that Final Fantasy has had with players. And it realizes that like, not like nostalgia bait wise, but like leaving Midgar, which is very like closed and claustrophobic, it retains that sense of like you step out of calm in Rebirth and you get this big open field that feels endlessly explorable. And that was so compelling, and they did it in a new way with new tech. It's not a world map in the same way, but it gives you that same feeling that's so compelling. And I think that the other thing worth noting is Final Fantasy X came out in 2001. Final Fantasy VII came out in 1997.
Yeah.
That's 4 years. You know, Final Fantasy IX came out less than a year before 10. And so when you have a condensed release schedule like that, like that's insane, right?
Yes.
Sure, there's probably like from between 97 and 2002, there was only 1 year that did not have a mainline Final Fantasy release. 97 had Final Fantasy 7, 98 had no Final Fantasy, 8 came out in 99, 9 in 2000, 10 had Final Fantasy 10, or 2001 had Final Fantasy 10, 2002 had Final Fantasy 11. When you have that condensed release schedule and Final Fantasy 10 comes out and does something very different, because 7, 8, 9 on the PlayStation were very similar. They had different like character mechanics, but otherwise very, very similar in structure, in gameplay, and expectations. 10 was a big change from all of that. So was 11. But when you get them basically every year, having something that's a little different like 10 probably would have felt, I would have appreciated it more if we had gotten 11 a year later and it was a regular Final Fantasy game. Or even, you know, in 2003, we had gotten a regular Final Fantasy game. But you actually had to wait at this point now 5 years for the next mainline single player Final Fantasy, which was 12, which was also very, different. Worked for me, didn't work for a lot of people. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, I waited all this time and this is weird and not what I expected.
Right. Yeah.
Final Fantasy 16 came out 3 years ago. So there's already been more of a gap, you know, between Final Fantasy 16 and now than there was between Final Fantasy 8 and Final Fantasy 10. And so like, you know, when you get into this release schedule where it's like, oh, we have to blow everybody's minds, we're going to like create something new. Final Fantasy reinvents itself with every iteration. Like, you don't have access to like a strong base of players, and Final Fantasy is struggling to reach younger players because it doesn't have an identity. It doesn't have kids who grew up like with it as part of their childhood, because it's so long between releases. Like Final Fantasy 15 came out 2016, 7 years after 13. So like every 7 years, a new Final Fantasy comes out. And so a teenager might play one Final Fantasy before the age of 15.
Yeah.
Which is wild, right? And so then the idea that they even care that you're rebuilding the identity of the series between games is like such a fallacy. Give them something really good. It's what Dragon Quest does, right? And like Dragon Quest, I get it. Its ceiling in North America on sales is lower, but like it knows its identity, and it has huge gaps between releases now, but you know what you're getting with Final Fantasy 12 or Dragon Quest 12 when it comes out.
Yeah.
in 2028 or whenever at this point. And I think that like Final Fantasy got into this period of success during the PlayStation that kind of gave it too much confidence that it could do whatever it wanted or whatever it needed to. Final Fantasy X being so different and such a big success, kind of feeding into this idea of like, oh, okay, we can like, you know, we have this responsibility now to reinvent ourselves, and it's going to work every time. But when 13 and 15 and even 12 and 16, like there has not been a beloved Final Fantasy since 10. You know, there have been ones that people like. Final Fantasy 7 is like passionately defended by people like me, but there aren't like universally loved Final Fantasies. 10 was the last one. And 10 is when they started changing up the formula every time. And so what, you know, Reiner saying that that's a strength, that like this is pursuing Sakaguchi's ambitions. Sakaguchi left after this game. But he wraps up, and this is what I wanted to talk about too, is Reiner wraps up his review saying, even if you don't approve, and sorry, I should go back and say this is part of the reason I think this is a strong review of Final Fantasy X for the time, because he bookends his superlative opening with like this contrast to close out the review. So quote, even if you don't approve of all the changes that Squaresoft has installed, I'm sure you'll agree that Final Fantasy X is a breakthrough release, a visionary tale, and a masterpiece for the ages. Again, I think this is a spot-on read of the game. It changes a lot, and that does not work for a lot of people. It doesn't work for me. And I've been, you know, very open about why that is on Blue Sky and on other podcasts and stuff. But it is beloved, and it did introduce a lot of people to the genre, to the series as the first game. Everything that came after it, though, has been so fuddled up that I think they just like lost momentum, and they needed to recognize that like, hey, we could do this like fast release schedule and make like changes to the series on the PlayStation because our development time was, you know, quite a bit shorter. But like when you're releasing games every 7 years, you need a stronger identity. And I think that they missed, Squaresoft missed that. And missed seeing that when 10 was such a big success. And then they launched into an MMO.
Or you've got to be each, you know, well, and this is the trap of the AAA 5, 6, 7 year dev cycle, right?
Yeah.
Which is like each new Elder Scrolls game has to be so much mind-blowingly better than the last one. And better than anything else on the market, right? Like,
but does it? So like, because like, what are the big sellers?
This is the trap of it.
It's the same game every year.
Yes,
kids just play Fortnite and Roblox. They literally play the same game all the time. And so like the idea of having to reinvent yourself or one up yourself rather than building iteratively on yourself, I think it's just such a disingenuous, like capitalist idea. I've been playing the Life is Strange games, and so I played Reunion, which came out this year, and it was sort of like the wrap up conclusion to the trilogy with Max and Chloe. And it was kind of panned by a lot of people because it reuses so many assets from Double Exposure, which came out a couple of years ago. But for me, I was like, this is good. Like, reuse stuff, build stuff, and use it multiple times.
Yes.
Street Fighter did it, right? Like, they weren't redoing their backgrounds with every like new release, right? Not until you got a big major release. Like, reuse this stuff. Final Fantasy VII Remake Trilogy is what it is because they keep the team around and they're leaning on the work they've already done. And so they were able to release Rebirth in like 4 years, and it's been fabulous, right?
Right.
And so, you know, we look at where Final Fantasy has had a beloved, sort of almost unanimously, universally loved game, and that's the 7 Remake, right? It's not divisive the way 16 or 15 or 13 were. Final Fantasy 14 is also beloved as a mainline release, but it's an MMO, and it literally has done the same thing the whole time. Well, actually, I guess that's another story, but
that is another story. And I was going to say,
completely redo 14, but the successful version of 14 is just the same thing, and it builds off what was already there. And I just think I'm glad Reiner pointed out, like, hey, this game changes a lot. That might not be for you, but it is going to have a big impact. And that's exactly what 10 did, which I think is good.
Yeah. I will say, I do think that there is some of that reinvention. Like you said, it was iterative from 1 to 2, from 2 to 3 to 3 to 4 to 4 to 5. And it was, but they also, tried to push the envelope, tried to push boundaries, in
In
battle
specific
system,
areas, though.
in specific areas.
They never
Right. Well,
changed everything at once, right?
right. Well, and I think that's also the hardware is limiting too, right? Where you're like, okay, the NES, how many times can you go back to the well and push boundaries? The SNES, how many times can you go back to the well and push boundaries?
Sure.
Right? Now you're like, well, now I've got streaming video. Now I've got streaming audio. Now I've got internet. Like, what can I do? The possibilities become gigantic, and so then it's
and
like,
that's where
okay,
the creative restraints are so important for the series.
Exactly. So I think for me, and like you say, I mean, a lot of Zelda has mastered this. Ocarina of Time to Majora's Mask, Breath of the Wild to Tears of the Kingdom.
Yes,
Nintendo
100%.
has been doing this. Hey, yeah, cool. Let's take these assets.
Yeah.
And now that we have the assets, let's rebuild a new game, new mechanics on top of it. So, that all makes sense to me. And obviously, I think you can't go. Me bringing up this epic AAA dev tentpole, like 7-8 year timeline. I don't think you can do that. I don't think that's sustainable. I don't think it's possible to.
No.
Again, Bethesda Starfield, right?
Yeah.
You can't start 8 or 9 years out and go, we're gonna be revolutionarily ahead of the game in every single way right now. Okay, well, 10 years later, it's going to catch up with you, or like stuff that you thought was unbelievably revolutionary will be old news in 10 years, or some of it will say, it's going to be all over the place. You can't project out that far. You can't take that long. You can't keep an audience waiting that long. And I would love if we were on Final Fantasy 25 at this point and everybody has their favorites, and it's not just, okay, what's your favorite? Is it 6, 7, 8, or 9?
Yeah.
And then, if you want to get really saucy, you can say 4 or 5, right? Like, there's
secret best Final Fantasy.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So that's what I'm saying. Like, it would be cool. And then each one can play towards different audiences. You can play with different stuff,
100%.
right? So like, I would love to live in a world where it's still more like that. Maybe that's where we're going.
Yeah.
And maybe 14, and I think for us, the price of investing in 14, because there's so many great stories and so many things up in Final Fantasy lore and Final Fantasy moments that 14 aficionados are like, you guys are missing out on all the best Final Fantasy of the last decade because you haven't been playing 14. It's like, all right, cool. Well, I just need to sink 400 hours into it to get caught up.
None of it happens in the main story quest also, which is like 50 hours,
So like, that's the thing where it's like, they've siloed off a bunch of that stuff in that online world. And then like, if it has a persistent younger fan base, it's in 14, and how many of them are going and playing the mainline stuff, I don't know. So it's they're in an odd situation, and I wish they would get to more iterative stuff and get more.
And like, it's not like Square doesn't do it. Octopath is hugely successful. It doesn't sell from Square's perspective, it only sells 1 million copies or whatever, like still huge numbers, but it doesn't sell 15 million like Final Fantasy 16 does. And so from a monetary perspective, I know Final Fantasy 15, like, hugely problematic development cycle, took forever to come out, right? 7 years, right, between 13 and 15. But it also made back its costs on the first day of sales. And so, like, from a business perspective, that's a success for the people who hold the purse strings at Squaresoft. Even if it's the wrong lesson to take. We see a lot of this iterative stuff at Square, which works really well. Life is Strange is a Square game, right? Like, yes. And that's my recent example of iterative sort of like game development. Octopath as well, like, they do it. And I think that Final Fantasy's original strength, when it was at its peak, was because of iterative design, not because of reinventing itself. And now we get into this place where every Final Fantasy has its own creative team and like lead visionary. The guy responsible for Final Fantasy 14's huge success, right? Yoshi P, he led Final Fantasy 16, and it didn't do anything that Final Fantasy 14 does well. And you get into that like Star Wars sequel trilogy issue where you have a different vision at the top for every movie or every game, and then it just never feels cohesive, and it doesn't feel like there's a through line of like, this is what makes this a Final Fantasy.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
And I think that's just really problematic, and it all, in my opinion, started here in Final Fantasy X. And I think Reiner like does a good job of recognizing what the game does well, but also where some of its divisive elements like the linearity really come into play.
Yeah. What do we think here? And actually, should we talk about Justin's second opinion? I think we should, since it's there.
Sure.
Do review the review and then not talk about this second opinion here. It's from Justin. I was skeptical at the thought of another Final Fantasy. I've played all the US released games and they've all rocked the house, but my enthusiasm has been waning. Silly me. That's fascinating to me. That after 9, you're a reviewer at a major gaming magazine. You're like, maybe they don't need to make another Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
9 fell that flat for you. Wow. Okay. I guess he said they've all rocked the house, but my enthusiasm has been waning. Like, I've seen this enough. This is kind of what I was hinting at before too, right? Like, if you're 38 when Final Fantasy 9 comes out, and then they're like, okay, cool, here's 10. You're like, hey, maybe I don't want another variation on this formula, right? This could be the greatest Final Fantasy, if not RPG, of all time. For once, a game in the genre has a truly unique setup. No experience and no weapon stats may seem sacrilegious at first, but FF10's sphere grid and weapon customization put them to shame. Storytelling is vastly improved with the wealth of speech, past tense voiceovers, and shockingly superb cutscenes. However, things were a bit too linear. With apologies to DOA 3, I must say FF10 has some of the hottest women in video games. Parenthetically, pathetic, but it must be said.
If you do some research, and it is necessary in every aspect of game development to do research, you will see that breasts really don't rotate this way. Oh, excuse me.
Close parenthesis. Unlike Ryder, I find it refreshing that Tidus is not the typical hero. It makes him that much more real. No other game will bring role-playing to the masses like Final Fantasy X. Pick it up, whoever you are. Justin, also 9.75. It just kind of stupidly endearing to me. It's like, look, I know this is pathetic of me to say.
Yeah.
But
at least he acknowledges
I have to say it anyway. He calls himself out on it. But overall, like, yeah, cool. Like, hey, this totally blew away the old formula, and I love that. It's great. And so, like, okay, that's cool. But the thing is here, no other game will bring role playing to the masses like Final Fantasy X. But this is something that's been itching at the back of my mind. Like, part of the problem with the linearity is this is the least role playing that you get to do. Yeah. You're not Tidus. Tidus is Tidus because he's talking and there's his voice. Yeah. You're not Waka. You're not Lulu. You're not any of these characters because they're all talking, right? And you're watching it. So the role playing, and you don't get as many choices to, like, how are you playing these characters, right? Some of the things that people talk about with, like, Red Dead 2, where you're like, yeah, cool, I have this unbelievable amount of agency and freedom and non-linearity, and I can do whatever. And then I get in a cutscene. Oh, and here's some guy who is not acting or talking or making choices like I've been making as Arthur, being Arthur.
My criticism of GTA 4, right? Like, that what I had to do, I didn't have agency in the world because I had to play through missions in a certain way that didn't match what I thought the character should be.
Right. Yes.
And I think, like, the thing that frustrates me about especially, like, Justin's second opinion, but also in Reiner's review as well, is they keep criticizing it for being linear narratively and structurally. But then, like, Justin's, like, glazing the sphere grid, which is super linear, right? Like, and weapon customization is, like, pretty simple. It's not...
Yeah.
Like, Final Fantasy 9 had the same thing where you kind of, like... It's not the same, but you, like...
Right.
Combine weapons and items to, like, make new items. But, like... Weapon customization in 10 it doesn't really have a huge impact, and then the sphere grid is linear until you get into, there's the international edition that creates non-linear sphere grid, so everybody's like Kamari, they start at the middle, and you could make Tidus a black mage, and you could make Oron like a white mage and stuff like that, which is cool, but that's not the game they're reviewing here.
Right.
Same thing happened with 12, that it had the license board, and it was quite linear in the original release, and then the international release had, like, non-linear, almost like a job system, and it got way better. Right. So, like, you can't say the story's too linear, but I love the sphere grid when the sphere grid is essentially super linear too, until the very end when you can, like, hop around and customize a little bit, or you build super inefficiently and try to get your characters into, like, different classes early, but, like, that's just gonna hobble you. in the game. You can't really do that. It's not realistic. And so like you can't have both. You can't say it's too linear in the story, but then kind of glaze a system of character building that's just as linear as anything else.
All right, should we review it?
Let's do it. What do you think, Ty? What do you give Reiner and Justin's review of Final Fantasy X?
Yeah, we got a 2-page spread. It uses up the whole 2 pages. Bunch of great screenshots, and it's kind of a mix of like iconic moments. I think they're well framed and well cropped, well selected, right? You get a taste of most of the characters. Some of the big monster design is super cool. And then the text, there's not a ton of text, but it's really well written. It covers all the bases. And I think it properly frames the game in the history of the franchise and acknowledges what people might want and the expectations, acknowledges where it varies from that, and then goes, hey, like, but whether this is to your taste or is not, it's undeniably just an incredible achievement in terms of development and production and putting the money on the screen, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's right. And the second opinion, like, I agree with it less in terms of,
that's
do I think it's in line with my taste? But it is, I think it's a more emotional and more, it's a useful second opinion, right? Because it's probably less thoughtful, more emotional, and I think reflective of what a lot of more casual, and I'm literally not using that as a derogatory term, but like, what it's like, this brings role playing to the masses. You know, if you weren't already on board or you're younger and you're like, what's Final Fantasy about, right? Like, if Final Fantasy VII broke RPGs out to the masses, Final Fantasy X was just simply a mega AAA game with all of the anticipation, and then bam, it blasted everything out of the water. So it's like, 9, I love 9. It may be my favorite of the series, but also it slow rolls you at the beginning. You're not getting the big gosh wow, oh man, I'm playing the hottest PlayStation 2 game of the year. Like, and 10 does. 10 gives you, this is a AAA game. This is a major revolutionary title. It's doing things nothing's ever done. And you're going to be like jaw on the floor the whole time. Even if you don't like digging into systems and numbers, and you don't enjoy wandering around on a map, and you don't get that same rush of role playing and fantasy that nerds like. Every person who likes video games will like this for the most part. So I'm gonna give this review. We've been scoring high lately.
We have,
and I think this is partly due to how magazines have grown up since 1995. We're in 2002, right? There's a lot less, amateurish writing. There's a lot less, one reviewer going off on a tangent, especially for AAA releases like this. We're getting a lot more panels. We're getting a lot more thoughtful and a lot more considered. And also, these magazines are also, explicitly or not, more beholden to corporate interests, right? There's more money in the magazines. There's more advertising in the magazines. There are either official ties or unofficial ties to the retail sales of the game, and they're more a part of the PR apparatus than they were in 1995, right? So like, there's a certain minimum standard that's got to be held, and this holds it. So I'm probably gonna give this 8.75 blitzballs out of 10.
8.75 blitzballs out of 10. I think I'm coming in just a little bit lower than you.
Okay.
Admitting though that that's because of also like subjective reasons for that. I think that I like that Reiner recognizes some of the changes that have been, that in hindsight were negatives for the series. But I do think that he did so in a way that recognized, also with hindsight, the impact that this game would have on players and new players. Like, I recognize that I'm the outlier in my opinion here. But I also, I feel like without necessarily questioning why the game needed to change its formula so much and how and why that might have been to appeal to casual users, I would have liked to have seen maybe a little bit more of like, hey, why did they do this? Not just like evaluative like, hey, this changed a lot and it's really cool. But it's all very subjective. I get that. So I'm going to come in, I think, a little bit lower than you, just with a straight 8 blitz balls out of 10, I think. I'll be honest, Justin's like second opinion brings it probably down a little bit because I think there's just some contradictory stuff in there. I think Reiner is a little more spot on. And like I said, I agree with him, especially objectively, even if not subjectively, in how he saw the game. Yeah.
Sure. And I would like, it'd be cool if we had a little more text also for some of these, especially for a cover review.
Yeah.
We've seen other magazines at this time are giving 3 pages.
Yeah.
You know, or there's no strategy or tips, which again is not something that I need.
Sorry, there is strategy though. And so like if we continue on, there's a huge strategy guide.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Oh.
So like a
that
huge
makes sense.
one. Yeah.
That
Going
makes
through
sense.
like basically the whole game as well.
Jeez. Okay.
So like gigantic, and that's where that access comes from. I'm not
even saying I like. I don't even say I like that. That's not even necessarily a positive for me, but it is something I was just noting. Like, if you're doing a cover review, other magazines at this point are giving even more than a 2-page spread,
and they are
going more in depth.
Page that they use for just key art.
Yeah. Oh, it's just the art and the game of the month award. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah. So, and like, just, I think that what's interesting too is like, I talk about context and wanting to understand context here. They did do that feature on the game with the Hironobu Sakaguchi stuff with the development team interview, but they just didn't like link it all together. And that probably comes back to the fact that like at the end of the day, Game Informer was trying to sell video games, right? Their parent company wanted them to sell video games. I don't think the staff writers were necessarily doing that, but that was ultimately the purpose. Was not necessarily to provide like high level cultural criticism.
Yeah. I mean, by this era, that's probably changed a little bit or is changing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's something that's always in the back of your mind.
Yeah, totally.
All right, that is our review of Game Informer's review of Final Fantasy X. Did we get it right? Leave our review a review at Apple Podcasts, post it as a comment on YouTube, and we will read the best ones on air. Hey, go ahead and pass the show around to all your friends like it's 3rd grade and we're on the playground. Shout us out on Blue Sky at funfactorpod.com, everywhere else at funfactorpod. Special thanks as always to Millennium Falk for all our amazing original music. Check out his work and his incredible Windows 95 website at millenniumfalck.com. Unlike these old magazines, you won't have to wait a whole month for your next installment. We drop new episodes every 2 weeks. So go to funfactorpod.com to follow our show on your podcatcher of choice. And please consider becoming a member of Fun Factor Ultra, our premium tiers that unlock ad-free episodes, bonus episodes, and the members-only channels of our Discord, where we drop the super secret links to live recording sessions of these episodes, just like our friends joined us today in chat. We had members talking with us, adding comments, and mix it up on air, which is super cool. Just go to funfactorpod.com. I promise you will not miss the sign up widget on our homepage. If you do, you and we will have a maximum score in Fun Factor.